on public screen, we double check our audio. Sorry, Ashley. I think we're good to go.
Okay, welcome everyone to the December 6th meeting of the Village of New Paltz Planning Board. I will be subbing in for Chair John Litton tonight. First off, we have some administrative business. The minutes from November 15th. Everyone get a chance to take a look.
Yep.
Could I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next up, do we have any updates from the village board, Ulster County Planning Board, Environmental Policy Board? Anyone?
Will normally is our liaison.
Right.
I think lost him, and Rachel is our liaison for the environmental policy.
Bill did relay that there were no updates, just that the Ulster County Planning Board meets tomorrow, I think. Okay, and I was hoping to confirm quorum for our December 20th meeting. However, looks like we might not be able to do that right now. I am going to be out of town that day, so.
And maybe the attorney has to chime in here, but I can attend, but I would have to do it remotely. Is that legal?
So it depends the circumstances. The village does have a law that allows remote participation in certain circumstances, but even so, there would need to be a quorum physically present. So I know Chair John Litton said that he was able to be there. We know that Zach can't, and Terry, if you're able to be remote, that's good, but there needs to be then 2 more people.
I'll be here.
Rich will be there, okay. And then
It seems like one of the other members will probably be around, so I think that's tentatively should be okay. Okay, moving on, I'd like to open the public comments. Does anyone here wish to make a public comment? Anyone on Zoom? No? Okay. Seeing no public comments, I'd like to move on. Tonight, there are no public hearings, so we will move directly into the application reviews. Number 1, PB 22-14, 115 to 127 Main Street. Do you want to step up?
John Joseph representing a few things.
Yeah.
Wells Fargo NP in the 115-121 Main Street. So that was actually scheduled for a public hearing for the tables and chairs out front.
Yeah.
And then we moved that to the 20th. So the other thing I'm here for is the Wells Fargo NP, which is to put the apartments below the liquor store.
Right.
so if I could, the board will need to vote to reschedule the public hearing on 2214 to the 20th.
Yeah, so I guess let's first do that. Could I get a motion to reschedule the public hearing for PB 22-14 to December 20th?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that public hearing is rescheduled. I guess I'll just also note that we're awaiting comments from the Ulster County Planning Board on that. So hopefully they'll get those back by the 20th, and yeah, we'll be able to.
We're meeting
Tomorrow, I believe. Yeah.
I think it'll be okay.
Yeah. So in that case, we can move on to PB 22-19, 27 Main Street. And so this is the application that you were just referring to.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us a little about this?
Yes. If you brought paper, I'll take it. We have it on here.
Oh, yeah, you guys are very sophisticated.
Just-
So we look at, so this is the This is the property, the Wells Fargo building. This is the liquor store. And the liquor store is at grade with the Wells Fargo building. And below it is another 2,350 square feet that was vacant when we acquired it in December of last year. And the previous owner told me it was vacant when he bought it, which was in 2007. So I have a set of plans. The only thing I can see that it ever was at one time, this was a bank called Intercommerce Bank or Interstate Bank. Intercounty Bank. And Intercounty Bank built this for their loan processing center. And they were upstairs and downstairs, and downstairs they had closed their offices and stuff like that. So as far as I can tell, it was the last tenant that was in there. I have been trying to rent it for a year and a half now. I've spoken to all the brokers. I've tried to steer any office user down to it. I don't know what to do. So my thought was convert it to 3 apartments. The village needs housing. It fronts the rail trail, so it's open on 3 sides. That's why I'm here.
Okay, so this is a little tricky because technically in this zoning, you're not supposed to have apartments on the first floor.
I know. It says above, but this
Yeah.
is a little unique to that in that,
The commercial space is still at grade.
correct.
So unfortunately, we are waiting to hear back from Corey to do a zoning review on this one. So there's just limited stuff that we can do right now.
Okay.
So there,
If you want, I could chime in there, just
yeah, please.
give an update. So the only residential use here in the Gateway District, so it allows apartments above the first floor. So my reading of the code, as Zach noted, that Corey will be asked to do that zoning code review, but I believe you would need either a use variance, which it's a very high burden for a use variance, different from an area variance, or the other option would be a zoning amendment from the Village Board of Trustees. So I think those are kind of the 2 paths right now, but again, we could see if Corey has any other determination there.
And I think the village board might be sympathetic because they do recognize that the importance of additional housing in the village, so.
I've tried to rent it. It's been vacant for 20 years. I don't know what to do.
And the use variance would be through the ZBA. It's just a different type of review in terms of the standard, but it's still the same ZBA process in terms of a referral.
Yes, it would be a ZBA would have to grant a use variance, and where an area variance, you have 5 factors and it's a balancing test. For the use variance test, you have to establish all 4 factors. So if you are unable to establish one, then that's why it's a stricter burden than the area variance balancing test.
Would you recommend, well, when will Corey have a determination for us?
Hard to say. He's pretty backed up, but maybe
Alternatively,
hopefully by the next meeting, I would say he would have some feedback.
you know, I'm gonna go see if I can check the use variance boxes. Because like I said, this is a unique situation, and I think that's one of the things that kind of carries the day, is that, in this case, it happens to be under, so the structure.
Right. I mean, there's one thing we could do right now, and that's to set escrow for this application. I guess we could move forward with that. Unless,
Yeah, I mean, I think that I just want to confirm, Ashley, you've reviewed the code. Is there any particular reason that we're also suggesting that Corey review it?
So in
Because
order
what I
to
would
for-
also offer to the applicant is the chance for a referral to the ZBA, or unless the applicant doesn't want to have that.
No, I think
So
that was
use
probably-
variances to get to the ZBA, it's actually a different process where it doesn't come from a referral from this board. It is a determination from Corey that then can be appealed for a use variance. So that would be the next step there.
That makes sense.
Ashley, can I ask you a question? Because I'm not familiar with all the boards. Would I be better off going to the village board or going to the ZBA? What is the best path, do you think?
I think, I mean, it's really up to you. Again, the use variance test, it's just a higher burden. So just generally ZBAs throughout the state, you don't see a lot of use variances. But if you think you fit those 4 criteria, then certainly that's your prerogative to go that route. But if you do pursue, the village board route to see if it's something they would consider, if the zoning's changed, then that certainly, would give you the green light to go forward.
So the village board, I would be asking them to change the zoning to permit apartments above and below? Is that what I would be asking for?
It could be. Yeah, that's one option. I don't know, the below, it's just a unique situation. So whether it's, you want to go that specific or just to permit, apartments other than on the top floor, it's really, I think there's different options you could pursue.
Okay.
Well, anyway, yeah. For now, I'd like to just get a motion to set escrow at $1,500 with 50% replenishment.
So move. 1 second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And Autumn will send you some of the other specific comments that Ashley had on the application regarding parking spaces and stuff that might come up in the future.
Okay.
So, thanks for coming in.
Okay, thank you. I guess at this point, we just really have to wait on Corey to get the determination.
And I think your own suggestion of reviewing the 4 criteria for the use variance makes sense, because you might find that's just not even an option, and it really has to go to the village board. So why don't you take a look at that, and Corey will make the referral if he thinks he should, and we'll know next time.
I think the village board would help you with the specific zoning change once they understand the situation, if they want to.
Like I said, I think we can establish the hardship because it's been vacant for 20 years. Yeah. Okay. thank you.
Okay. Moving on to PB 22-18, 6810 Cooper Street. Okay. Back.
Yes.
So. You're welcome to use this one.
Thanks.
So could you just walk us through the changes? Any changes
Yeah,
in the
so
revised plan?
you'd requested the zoning bulk table and the parking requirements
Hmm.
and indicating the parking spaces, really clearly on the drawings themselves. I think that was it.
Okay. So I think, was there a new stormwater management plan? Or is that still the same as?
I think it's waiting to be reviewed. It's the one that was already submitted.
Oh, okay.
I
Or
don't
you mean
believe that that's been referred to the village engineer yet. So if you wanted to perhaps consider a motion to refer the application to the village engineer to review the proposed stormwater management facilities and the water and sewer connections as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think that I would like to do that. Is everyone in agreement?
Yep.
Could I get a motion to refer the stormwater management plan to the village engineer?
Can I ask a question before you do that?
Sure.
What is so this is, an established subdivision that had a stormwater system created, when it was, when it was built many, many years ago.
Mhm.
And that system was approved by, at that time to manage all of these lots. So what would you be looking for beyond what's already been accomplished?
Well,
Because this is not a greenfield, right? This is an established subdivision with stormwater infrastructure that exists that we would simply be utilizing.
So it would just be for the village engineer to confirm that that system's adequate for the new. The
Okay.
new.
Because
homes that
my
they're
answer would be, I don't know what I'd be looking for because I'm not an engineer.
Right.
That's why I would
Okay.
refer.
Did the original subdivision wasn't accounting for duplexes or that
That's true.
type of lot coverage, I think.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Okay.
And just
And the
to,
water and sewer connections as well.
Yeah, thanks, Sasha. So the motion to refer the application to the village engineer to review both stormwater management facilities and the water sewer connection.
Right.
So move.
second,
All in favor?
Aye. Before we, Chairman, are the water and sewer connections into the lot? Have they been stubbed out into the lots yet? Or are they still on the street? The water and sewer for those 3 lots?
The stormwater, you probably know.
No, not stormwater, Dave, but the
The actual,
water and sewer.
right. I don't know the answer to that.
Probably
I mean,
the
they're-
engineer can look at it.
What's that?
Probably to Cooper Street, but not diverted into the law. I don't know, but we'll let the engineer take a look.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, is there any homework that I should do on that front? Or is this something that only,
No, other than I think the engineers, a plate is full. And so if you wanted to follow up during the period between now and the next meeting, you
Yeah.
might, but he might be a squeaky wheel.
nudge them? Okay.
Yeah. There were a couple other small issues that Ashley identified, including bulk table should contain columns for each of the 3 lots and show the actual dimensions for each of the 3 lots. Presently, there is only 1 actual column. Also, bulk table refers to Village Code 2212-19D with respect to the side yard. It appears this provision would only apply to 10 Cooper's northern side yard, which shows a dimension of 8 foot 10 inches in one area. When the bulk table is revised to show the proposed dimensions for each lot, reference to this code section should only be for the lower lot. Additionally, the bulk table should calculate and set forth the average side yard so that compliance with the Village Code 212-19D can be confirmed.
Can I just get that written so that, okay.
Yeah, Autumn will forward you these comments as well. And there's one more comment related to that specific provision with the side yard, and I think we just need a little more data on the calculation of that average side yard width. But other than that, I think it's
Ready to go?
yeah.
Autumn, did the R3 thing, is that done? Is the R3 thing done yet? We should wait for the engineer's report before the public hearing.
Yeah, I mean, one other thing that we could do is refer to the Ulster County Planning Board. This is required to be referred. So could I get a motion to refer this to the UCPB?
So move. Second.
Is that also going to need to be zoned R3 and will be properly reviewed by Ulster County Planning Board?
That might have to, oh yeah.
You might not be able to-
Ashley, does the zoning, R3 zoning need to be in effect for this to be referred to the UCPB?
The R3 zoning will have to be in effect before you could actually issue any type of approval. You could still refer it to the Ulster County Planning Board. They might well come back with a comment saying that, the zoning has to be changed, but then that's just something that you'll have to, require anyway before you could give any approval. So you could certainly refer it this evening.
Okay, great.
But by that, just for clarification, Ashley, you're saying they might come back with, you can't approve this until that is finalized, not that they can't review it before it's finalized.
Exactly.
Great, okay. Okay, so, sorry, did we get a motion already, or, okay.
So, I move we send it to the UCPB for review.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So I believe that's all that we can do.
Let me ask this, because I want to make sure that, these requests, I get them all done and it's like baked. Is there a way that I can get, I guess, Ashley, you're the one who's doing the kind of reviews of these things, right? Is there any way that I could turn this around super fast and just get it right to her instead of, what I'm afraid of is another 2 weeks, I submit it and then I hear, and you know what I mean? Is there any way
I
that?
mean, I think that once these minor issues are with the site
Yeah.
plan are resolved, and then we get the village engineer's comments back and the Ulster County Planning Board's comments back, it's,
Yeah.
it's ready to go. And I'm comfortable setting a public hearing as soon as we hear back from the village engineer. And so I'm not sure that, Ashley could go back and forth like outside of a meeting, but,
Well, the one question for Autumn is that, do you know if the R3, the R1 to R3 change is on the agenda for the village planning board? Because that's ultimately the thing that's gonna hold it from ever being approved.
The
it's already
zoning
done.
map was done, but use the map was the final phase. The village board has approved it. It's simply, we're just waiting to hear back from the state that it's officially that it's codified within the village.
Okay, and do they have a timeline by which they're required to respond?
State,
Yeah, sometimes they do.
not that I'm aware of. I'm told it usually takes about 4 weeks.
So my guess is that that will be the thing that'll be the ultimate,
But we could even,
gate through which we gotta get.
but there's nothing of the various steps that you just defined, there's none of those that we have to wait for that to be done, right? Other than the literal CO, I mean, the building permit, right?
No, this board wouldn't be able to approve the site plan until the
Okay.
zoning
Yeah,
The
change is
approval.
effective.
Resolution.
But the public hearing and so forth could be done before that.
Could we do the public hearing before the change in zoning?
Yeah, it's my understanding that the zoning has been approved by the village board. It's been sent, I think, to the state for filing, so it has to be filed with the Secretary of State in order to actually be effective. So I don't see any reason why, that's pretty much a ministerial step there, as long as the village board already approved it. So you could certainly proceed with the hearing once you hear back from the engineer.
Okay, great. Thank you. And the specific comments on the amendments to this site plan, we'll be getting those meeting. Okay, excellent. Okay, thank you.
Are you going to get the public hearing for January?
I think we're gonna wait for the Ulster County Planning Board comments because they might be a consideration for the hearing. We'd have to be certain we would be getting them back by the, yeah, and the engineer's report. So
I think we should just schedule it as soon as those other comments come back, and,
Okay.
I think it'll be the first meeting in January.
probably gonna be the first minute.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. Next up, PB 22-10, 11 Water Street.
Hello?
Yeah, there's 30 cents.
Yeah, that and I have a full copy. Well, I mean, the bigger one. Huh? Sorry. Hi, guys, how are you?
Good.
Thanks for your time tonight. We just wanted, obviously, to go through an update. We, sent you,
Yeah.
plans, and we've been working at it. So, yeah, in fact, yesterday we went out to the site with our landscape architect and our surveyor, Mettenbach and Eggers, and also an arborist that we worked with in the past, that we're gonna begin to work with again. And, inventory all the trees, plotted them on the plans. We, learned some things yesterday. One of the things we learned was we felt that our patio was getting too close to the trail. So we backed it off to our property line. The original proposal that we were asking for, I believe, was somewhere in the 8,250 square foot range, and now it's down to 6,100. But I think the net was somewhere around 1,100 square feet that we backed out of the township's property. And it's mostly on this southern end of the property. This is the dash line that's the property line. And originally we had this line coming all the way across connecting to here. We've since backed that off and, instead of asking for the easement on the 8,200 or whatever it was, the 6,100 would be what we would be looking for. You remember we made that proposal for a purchase, but it's actually shrunk, which is great. And, it's actually, the patio is now backed off substantially enough where our patio is closed in, which is okay. With us.
So there's a fence between the rail trail and the patio.
There is a fence guardrail, they call it, I guess, that's already there. And as the guardrail, I think, ends somewhere in in the neighborhood over here.
It's actually, I think it shows right here where it dives down.
Well, they would also have a little retaining wall at the end of the patio. That would be like 3 or 4 feet high.
But now it's back on our property line. So the retaining wall is
Right.
no longer on, right? It was a really helpful way to go about it because we were able to shoot the whole property with the surveying team. And it did show that it just doesn't make sense bringing it that far or closer to the trail. And, all these trees are saved as a result, which is really what we were looking to do. We met with the two members of the Tree Shade Commission on site, I don't know, about 10 days ago, and spoke about the trees. And, I read our landscape architect in, and she was instrumental in working with us to actually measure all and inventory the trees, which I think I sent a copy of the tree list that we were that our landscape, I think you have this,
Yeah, we
right?
have it.
Okay, great. Okay, so I don't know, did you have any questions about that or?
No.
Okay. And there's,
We were very happy with it. We got
Yeah.
the saved, I think it was 22 trees that we don't have to touch. There was 7 that we need to deal with, but out of the 6 of the 7, they were in really bad shape.
that one already.
Yeah, they're all kind of documented here. I think it was was it seven, maybe five that were documented that were, either poor hazard or disease, I mean, we took pictures, I mean, there was like hollowed out roots in some of them that didn't make any sense to try to save. Not to mention the fact that on one of our previous submissions, I think we had submitted that we were going to be planting a number of trees along the edge of the property too. So in honor of those that we lost, we planted new ones.
Can I clarify net reduction in the patio square footage? Does that mean that there's no longer going to be an easement required or a purchase of land required?
No,
Or
there
it
is.
just going to be a different amount.
It's a different amount. And whether it be an easement or a purchase, however, how you guys look at this, but
So is
the,
that the new size patio that we're looking at here?
yeah, you can see this here. This patio was out here, but now is reduced.
Yep.
You can
And Barry,
see-
where's the line that
You
denotes
can
the
see
property?
this, see this bump out here?
Yeah.
That's from the stairs going south. They removed that property line.
Oh, the blue line is the property line.
Yeah,
Okay.
so he's gonna, right at the.
Yep.
Just inside of it.
Got it.
So it's only when you get north of where they're gonna have the connection, that they have the patio that's in, they need the easement, land use. And
that
that also
parking area.
includes some of the parking, so. Push the parking out to optimize as much as we can.
And so what is the status of those discussions with the village board and the Walker Valley Land Trust?
So I do know that our attorney should be online with us today.
You got Dennis Grace's,
Richard Olson, yeah. He is on today. Rich, do you want to lean in on that question?
The discussions that I had with the village attorney was that the village preferred an easement rather than any form of purchase. And that, as far as I know, the village board was willing to consider that. And right now, the village attorney is probably working on some form of document for us to look at further, as far as the discussions have gone.
Okay, great.
Additionally, I would point out that in our, kind of tree management program, we would do our best to take care of those trees. And, we already started talking to outside of our property between the rail trail and our property. And we've already kind of started a discussion on, what the plantings would be around, in and around those trees.
Sounds good. I also noticed that the number of hotel rooms increased by
Yes.
2.
Yes, as the number of parking spaces increased as well.
So where did the parking change?
Yeah, so if you look, I don't know if I have a previous plan here, but so you see 20 spaces here. There's
Yeah.
5 there. So it's a total of 37 parking spaces when it was, I think, what was it, 33 before?
To answer your question, yeah, the additional parking is up in this area.
Yeah, that's-
I see.
With the part of the easement, it allows us to get another 5 spots in this area.
Right, okay.
The whole thing,
And is that all the same grade?
No,
No, it drops off some, but what you
Yeah.
have here is,
I
you have this stormwater corridor here. There's a box culvert and then it
Yeah.
stops, there's an opening and then another box culvert. So in this opening area, it drops off quite a bit and they have these concrete head walls. So what we would do is connect the head walls with like a retaining wall. And that'll allow this corner here, because it kind of like drops down, to be filled in, so it will then be level. So it'd be some grading, but nothing that drastic.
Yeah.
And then as you get to the back, it rises up to the trail.
Mhm.
And what was the motivation to increase the number of rooms?
Well, it's just it's a tight spot. I mean, I think we've all been under the conversation that more parking is beneficial for the guests. Obviously, we're still moving forward with the hope to have a food and beverage concept on the property as well, where we needed to find some more parking spaces. So it felt like this was a good solution to move us in the right direction.
But
I was
just to be
asking-
clear, like, we started at 30 and then we backed it off to 26, thinking we didn't have the room for the parking spaces that we needed for those extra 4 rooms. But then after moving some stuff around and working with Barry and working with our landscape architect, and also working with our architect, who was able to do that 28 rooms within the existing footprint. So we didn't really expand the footprint that was gonna have any impact on any parking that we were adding to the actual site. So we were able to add those spaces.
So you're thinking like the parking, the volume of parking that you're able to put into the lot is kind of driving the number of rooms you're trying to get to?
More or less, yeah.
Originally, yeah, for sure.
We also have a traffic consultant who's preparing a study for us, which should probably be done in another 2 weeks, right?
Well, yeah, actually, we thought we were gonna be on your December 20th meeting. And, we had planned to prepare to hand you a copy so that you can take the copy of the traffic study that they did and talk it over with your engineers. And then they give us the recommendations, and then we would just go back to our guy and have them do what is necessary to be done.
Well, there were a few items raised by our attorney, specifically, there's we don't have the special use permit narrative for the bar cafe use. So that's something that we would need to determine, how to really even calculate the required parking. There's also the issue that bars are not permitted in the Gateway District. So then if that is going to be a cafe use, that needs to have some, that cafe use has some parking requirements that would need to be factored into the parking plan. I think there's also issue of all offsite improvements should be clearly identified, and owners' endorsements provided from owners of lands in which any improvements work is proposed. And I think that you've done that for the Wallkill Valley Land Trust. I'm not sure if there's any other owners that there are going to be.
Everything else has been tamed.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, that'll really be the village board of trustees and in conjunction with the Walker Valley Land Trust who will have to approve the improvements on the village property and the conservation easement. If I
Okay.
could just back up to the special use permit narrative, so it would
Yeah.
have to address to the hotel standards as well. So there's the general special use permit criteria in the code in section 21240, and then section 21241 sub J, I believe, is for hotels specifically. So if you could give a written narrative addressing all of those, one of them for hotels, it has a mechanism for calculating the maximum number of rooms, and that has to be on it's limited by the aggregate of the uses on the property. So if it's going to be considered a cafe or bar that requires its own minimum lot area, that's something that will then impact the number of rooms that are allowed. So if you could just go through those criteria and just respond, explaining in the narrative why you believe you meet them or whatever adjustments might need to be made.
And in terms of the per acre standard, that just means that it's done pro rata according to the exact number of the exact amount of acreage. Well, okay.
We learned that
So have you
early
done
on
that
with Corey. Yeah.
calculation yet?
In fact, we thought we had a smaller piece of property as we were buying it.
Right.
And once it was surveyed, we learned that it was larger than we thought.
And is the calculation that you did earlier, did it incorporate the consideration of the cafe and the service that you plan to have?
We always had plans to have a small bar in
But did that calculation incorporate that?
incorporate what?
The cafe
The
use?
parking?
Not the parking.
Not the parking.
The
No.
cafe use?
Yes.
It did.
I think we looked at it as an accessory to the hotel.
But if it's open to the public, my understanding is that it then needs to be considered its own entity or its own use
And-
within the building.
Yes, and so we did speak to the SLA, and the SLA's rules are that it has to be open to the public.
Right.
Not where, and so, I mean, with that said, we did prepare a letter to you guys to just, you know, some of our own research that we did in relation to
One or two? Yeah, one.
in relation to the parking and study from our hotel and, you know, the travelers that come through. And, you know, you can take the time to look through that, but,
If you can make sure you email that to Autumn as well, that way it's in the,
absolutely.
Definitely.
Well, I'll get it out to you tonight. So,
So even if I'm guessing the suggestion in the memo is that because of the way you expect the cafe to be used, it might reduce the requirement for the overall usage in the SUP and the parking. That might be a strong argument, but that would be something that would require variance.
understood. I also, we went a little bit further than that. You know, safety, you know, was a concern for us as well. Like, we don't want to promote people, you know, coming and driving onto the property and driving drunk home. That was one of our considerations, you know, the fact that we're a walkable city and there's 1,275 single-family homes within a mile radius of us. There's the study that we did on the on our existing hotel and the travelers that have come through our existing hotel. The study that we did on, you know, it's a loose study, but I feel like it's a very conservative study, and you'll see when you read through it. The amount of revenue that's driven into the town from our guests that come to the hotel, that's in here as well. And then we also did add 4 more parking spaces. So that's kind of the long and short of it.
Yeah, and then we talk about occupancy. Obviously, we have parking for a 100% occupied hotel, which is not the case. You know, we generally run on an annual level, we're modeling for 70% occupancy. So there will be additional parking available on a daily basis. A lot of our small groups that come up, and, you know, it's a good portion of our business, you know, they come up on chartered buses as well, that they're not all driving. And then the location of the rail trail itself, where we feel a lot of people will access the hotel from the rail trail rather than driving onto the property. You know, and locally, I would assume that once the hotel is established, that, you know, local residents and people wanting to come will realize that parking is limited and not available to the public, and it is there for the guests of the hotel.
As well as employees that will travel the rail trail and also our employee housing at 13 Third Street that we plan to make an employee house so that, you know, one of our employees can live there, but then also that, or maybe 2. And they're, I mean, we have a couple of husband and wife teams that have worked for us before, so that's a possibility. And there, you know, there's parking there so that there, you know, maybe that's another parking space that we'd be giving up.
I see that you show bike racks on the site plan.
Yes.
You could just indicate, you know, how many spaces that is. There is a bicycle parking requirement in the village code. So
Absolutely.
That's one other thing.
Yeah, we-
Flagged here.
Absolutely. And, you know, I anticipate that we're going to be doing some bicycle storage, you know, maybe even for some local bike shops around the area. We've already started kind of talking to them about maybe utilizing our space for some of the bikes that they, you know, use for the people that they, to the people that they rent them to on the trail. We've worked with, actually, what is his name? Craig? I think his name is Craig, right? Yeah. he delivered kayaks to us recently on the Hudson River, and it was a great experience. So we plan to work with him as well.
So I will, in terms of the ideas that you shared about why you believe there might be less usage or less parking or less traffic implications and all that, I think that those might all be good assumptions, and I expect that the traffic study will lay those out and create that argument, and our traffic engineer will, sort of reflect on it with us. That wouldn't change the code requirement. So
Okay.
even, in terms of the number of spots required. And so, there's still, you should still be targeting the requirement of the code unless you plan to request a variance for less parking because of this argument you want to create about occupancy and types of usage of the cafes and all that.
Sure.
So I just want to make sure those all might be, good arguments, but they're not going to change the code.
Sure.
We completely understand that, and that's, we weren't sure if it was a waiver that you would be able to grant, or if it was gonna need to come from the zoning board, and that's an avenue we have to travel, we have to travel.
So I think we want to see that really clear memo, that the parking requirement being met with the new number of rooms, with the cafe usage as public usage. And then traffic study and all that, and that can be kind of the body of information that we get to.
Yeah.
So basically what you're saying is that if we didn't meet the parking requirement for site cafe, that we would have to ask for a variance for those spaces? Right. Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to check the code as far as the hotel special permit requirements, but the way the village does have parking requirements generally for non-commercial uses, it gives this board some discretion. So you may be able to, if this board is satisfied with the number of on-site spaces, if they don't meet those guidelines in the code, you may be able to vary those.
Yeah, thanks,
Okay.
Ashley. And I was gonna say also maybe on alternative, like spillover usage that you could demonstrate, maybe an agreement with
Parking lot.
a local lot or something like that could be things we could take into account. I have a question because I was at the lot thinking of the project. When you look at when you're facing the lot and you're all the way on the south end, there's a piece of land that's elevated by a retaining wall that's empty.
Sure.
Is that the blank land that's not being?
Between the house
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
property, that is the blank land, correct?
That's this area right.
That's that area, okay.
I believe that was a house that burned down.
There's a dotted line here where the existing building ends.
Yeah,
And here's that adjacent
that
house.
elevated, there's the
So
house.
this area
steps.
here, it's
That's-
elevated.
And it's in use in that corner of the plan. I
Oh,
see.
that's one other change that we did make to the plan is we added that path from the street to the rail trail.
Yeah, we moved the dumpsters down here. It just seemed this is more practical. Originally, we had them over here. And that's what allowed us to
I see.
squeeze in some more
And
parking.
as part of our interpretive signage that we'll, I guess, try to put into the narrative along with the bike, the number of bike spots. That we thought this would be a cool place for like a railroad crossing. Like as if you were crossing over the railroad tracks here and then onto the trail.
That, yeah, there were a couple other small issues that Ashley noted that we can definitely send to you, but one of these was that the plan should show the distance of the freestanding sign from the sidewalk curb to show conformance with Village Code 212-25. Not 100% sure which freestanding sign.
I think she does. Talking about the one over here.
Okay.
No, it's right here.
Oh, you can see it. Oh, it's right there, yeah.
Right. Okay.
I mean, we could probably just measure.
Yeah,
measure, I mean,
we
it's the
could-
scale.
We'll put it on the plan.
Yeah.
That's what they want.
Perfect.
And
You gotta comply with the sign.
yeah, also the Ulster County parcel records indicate Water Street Trails LLC is the owner of the property. And we need the owner's endorsement and site visit consent from the LLC. Not sure if we already raised that with you guys, but
I'm not sure if I sent that,
Um,
but yeah, we'll get that taken care of. We might have, but yeah,
okay.
we'll go get it.
Well, we can look back at that.
I believe I signed it and I think I did send it, but I'll look back.
So I think the main thing that we can do tonight is declare our intent to be the lead agency for seeker. Could I have a motion to declare us to be the lead agency and authorize the circulation of a lead agency notice?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And just to be clear, that there's a revision to the EAF that we need
think-
before we send that off.
Didn't we-
So they did revise, I think it came in maybe yesterday or earlier today. So they did revise the EAF as had been requested.
All right, cool.
So we could use that and I'll work with Autumn to get the lead agency notice out. I'll also include the ZBA as an involved agency, just in case the variance is needed. That way, they won't have to renotice in the future.
I have a question I wanted to ask, just in terms of context for when we see the traffic plan and flow. What's the reason there needs to be two bi-directional entrances and egresses versus one and then?
Just because of where the traffic would come from, you know.
It's actually
If
three,
you-
right?
if, let's say you eliminated this and this became an entrance, people coming down the street here would have to make this turn, which is very difficult. So it's just a practicality of how, you know, get a very unusual intersection. You know, so what we laid it out where we felt it's the most efficient and the most safest for people coming and going out of the site. That having the two entrances made more sense, you know, people can come down the hill and turn right into here and exit.
But it would seem like people could come here and use this, or could come from here and use this. See, here is immediately after that incline and drop off, and which is pretty, is sort of blind. I mean, you'll do some improvements.
That's because of all the overgrown in here. I think when you clear this all out, and you know, you'll get a nice line of sight to that.
Yeah, which we have intention. We
This is all, this is
had our
just
arborist.
the jungle here
It
right
is,
now.
it's brush, wild brush in there, but
And I believe,
But you're gonna have the traffic consultants review that too.
yeah, I understand. I just wanted to understand that whether that was something that was a convenience or whether that was something that you saw as
Well,
an engineering
convenience
requirement.
is all part of, you know, safe traffic. You know, if the entrances aren't convenient, they're not necessarily as safe as, you know, so that kind of goes hand in hand with traffic movement. And, you know, you want to control traffic, so where they come and go, you know, how they can enter and exit. And then, of course, you want to make it so it's functional. You don't want to make situations where people have to do something stupid to get into the site.
And is the traffic study going to address pedestrian flow in
you
and out of
know,
the
I don't know about that, but you brought up that sidewalk once before, and you know, we've talked about it, and it's something that's you know, you guys are really interested in doing there, like we're open to it.
Well, I wouldn't know the solution. I brought that up as an idea, but I would think that the way pedestrian traffic is anticipated to come in and out of the hotel would be something we'd want to hear from and your assumptions about that.
Okay.
And how that would affect existing pedestrian traffic coupled with the new traffic. And I think when we're doing that, I would encourage it to be thoughtful around the assumptions of the use of the rail trail as a 4-season entrance and exit and access, you know, route to the hotel. Just because, you know, it's not going to be that way when people are in the winter and in other seasons and in rainy.
Sure,
even
you
rainy.
mean,
So I think that I hear a lot that people are going to come from the rail trail, so that's going to reduce all the other stuff. And I just think that that's not a great 4-season assumption.
Well, it could be.
we did make it,
It could be, but I'm suggesting it's not.
No, maybe not now. But if they put the hotel here, they may very well drive them.
What I'm saying, to put it plainly, is that people don't use the rail trail to get to things as much as you're assuming they might.
Well, what I'm thinking of is pedestrian, somebody who is a pedestrian who wants to use the facility. Is not gonna, lives around the corner and is not gonna jump in a car to jump over here.
Right.
They're gonna walk. It'd
Right.
be better for them to walk on the trail than down Water Street.
Maybe, but
It's the way, that's why I'm looking at, pedestrian.
I'm suggesting things that I,
Snow on the ground or.
Yeah. and it's just, I'm making suggestions that I think can be helpful.
Yeah, listen, we hear you. This is somewhat of a steep incline, so it may require, if we did do some kind of sidewalk here, it may require some steps, but.
We have the room over here. on the
So,
property.
I do have a question on that, though. Who would maintain that? Would that be us? or
Jump
would
to
it
the
be
other side of
town?
the street.
I think I want to back off from this, from the recommendation of a sidewalk.
Okay.
It was a suggestion that I
Got it.
made just to think about, like,
We
people are
should
gonna
look into it.
come and go from there. What I'm
100%.
just saying is that I'm suggesting that pedestrian flow in and out of the property is gonna be not maybe as important, but important as
Understood.
is the traffic study. And I was asking if pedestrian was something that your engineer was gonna look at, because I would definitely ask our engineer to advise us about it.
Yeah, we'll.
And it's mostly about
I'll send them a note
safety.
in the morning,
It's mostly about safety.
100%.
Where people are and how people are coming up over that
Lighting and.
crossover.
Of course.
So just so you know, the sidewalk ends right here, right now, on that side of the road.
Where the parking is.
Yeah. Well, it's Not that far away.
Wait, so this ends the sidewalk and what this becomes parking lot all the way down
Back
to
into the-
Teresa's
the site.
property?
This side here.
Yeah, that's all parking.
And then,
Right.
so on your side, there's no way a pedestrian would flow when they leave the hotel, other than crossing the street.
Crossing the street.
Right now, there's nothing.
So we'd want to know the impact of cars entering and exiting more than one entrance and exit. The typical traffic that would come and up and over, crossing the rail trail blind, the people making the right on Mohonk, and then pedestrians free flowing across the street. Because there's no direction as to where they should walk other than freely across the
Maybe
street.
there needs to be a crosswalk to get to Mohawk Ave or something.
Where is the crosswalk? Right here?
You can only have a crosswalk if you have a sidewalk. You can't have a crosswalk that doesn't go to a sidewalk. It's, that's actually a state requirement. I've been there on that.
Currently, where is that crosswalk? Is it right along the rail trail?
The rail trail is the crosswalk, yeah.
Right there.
Okay.
Thanks for hearing me out.
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
no, I
All
think-
right. An evolving plan, so, but it's evolving in a nice direction, I think.
Yeah, I
A
think
lot of,
yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
We're
lot of revisions and a lot of good input. Yeah. Yeah. All right, great.
Okay.
Thank you so much
Thank
for your
you.
time.
Thanks.
And, Okay, perfect. Thank you. Oh, yeah. we have that.
Okay, thank you. Next up, PB 2201, 100 Woodland Pond Circle. Hi. That's okay, Autumn. I have the electronic. So, wondering if you could just outline any differences between this site plan and the one that we previously
Right,
saw.
for cottage number 2, what we did was to mitigate as best we can any water that could be entering the wetland. We added a drainage swale. In addition, all leaders will be tied into the existing drainage system, stormwater drainage system on the property. That adding that drainage swale would require a little bit of encroachment onto the conservation easement. And we ran it by the Wallkill Valley Land Trust, who granted a letter of approval, for that work.
Okay, so there's no change to the structures or the siting or anything. It's just the addition of.
Correct. The only other
swale.
addition is that we did eliminate some walkway
Okay,
because, to add the drainage swell.
And I think we also moved the cottage up a little bit.
Cottage,
to
right,
reduce
cottage moved a little bit, right? So the
Moved it
drainage
as
swell.
close as we
right.
could to the roadway and still have the
Correct.
offset that's required. So we moved it as far towards our existing road as possible to eliminate more impact on the conservation easement. And again, after the engineer sent over the plans for all of that, we sent it to the land trust. Obviously, they hold the conservation easement. They reviewed it, they took it to their board, and they are okay with what we've proposed. And we included that letter in the
Correct.
okay. Um, Well, yeah, I think that confirms to me that there are no significant changes to the original plan that we saw before that we approved. Would you agree?
Yeah, other than that, I think there's a note, and I would also agree that we would want the village engineer to review this final version besides the land trust reviewing it and signing off on their.
Right, yeah, we provided it to him, but yeah, I know we
We
provided
confirm
it
that
to him.
that's in there. That we would want the village engineer to review the drainage improvements that are being proposed. It's great that the land trust saw them and wrote a
Right.
memo in support, but we want to just make sure the engineering is something that we have our advice on.
Right.
Is Dennis on the call?
No, no.
Okay.
I think we may need a motion to refer this to him. At least that's what was written down here.
So motion to refer the revised plan and drainage improvements to the village engineer. So move.
And then would the approval be conditioned upon the engineer approving it, or would we need to come back?
I think that we would have to do the actual approval at the next meeting when we get his comments.
All right.
I thought it was referred at the last meeting to the engineer. Do you have that in your records? I thought in August it was referred to the engineer, and that's how we ended up here.
Weren't there changes made that you just described?
Well, we sent them to
We
him.
sent it to
So I
him,
think it was
right.
already referred to him.
So
He might
this
just not have
board,
responded.
if I could jump in here, and I believe there was a motion on the table. But before the board does go forward with the motion, so it was, I know, reviewed, I think discussed with the village engineer, but this board, now that there's been a formal submission of the plan, is
Right.
going to require that the village engineer just review that now that it's been formally submitted.
So there's a motion to
Yes.
refer the revised plan and the drainage improvements to the village engineer, and I believe very seconded. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks.
So then that would require then that, let's assume that Dennis Laris looks at it and approves it then, and we would need to come back to have another vote to be approved.
Yes, that's correct.
Ashley, would it make sense just in terms of workflow to have a resolution, to draft a resolution with consideration to the engineering review as a requirement of approval? Just to get the.
Or you could authorize the drafting of a resolution, and that'll be, of course, wouldn't be acted on until the village engineer had an opportunity to review. I did have a couple more comments. I don't know if you want me to just go over those quickly.
Yeah, could you walk through those, please?
Sure. So you already have approval for the two other cottages, right? So I believe, has that site plan been signed already?
Yeah, that we have the permit.
The permit, so the work has to
Yeah,
go
because
on.
the way these plans are, it's almost the way I looked at them, it seemed like it was showing, the improvements for all three, where this is, you already have approval for the two. So this one should really just be focused on the amendment that's required to add this third one. Because they're not going to be reapproving what's already been approved. So if you could kind of make that clear on the plan that it's just for the what's known as
Second
comments two, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I do note that I did see the Walk Hill Valley Land Trust their approval letter, but that is going to require an amendment to the conservation easement because it does restrict what can happen in the easement. That could be done as a condition of an approval, but I just wanted to make you aware of that as well.
Can I just ask how you came to that conclusion? Because the land trust did not indicate that was a requirement.
So in reviewing the conservation easement itself, it specifically says that things cannot be constructed, things like drainage swales can't be constructed in the easement area. So I understand that they're okay with it and they gave that letter, but the easement is something that's on file with the county clerk's office and it runs with the property. So if that's going to be changed, it requires more than the letter.
Doesn't the conservation easement says it can't be unless approved?
I believe I didn't see that in there. But if it were to be, if it can't be unless approved, then that would typically be approved by an amendment to the easement.
But if it does say unless approved, then this letter would hold then?
I mean, if it specifies, if it says it unless approved by a letter, or
Right.
approved outside of the easement amendment process.
Okay, so I think what I would recommend is we'll have Kevin Bernstein look at it because the land trust didn't indicate that anything would be needed. We'll have our attorney look at it while we're waiting for the engineer to look at his piece of it. And then we will reconvene with you on that.
Yeah.
And Ashley, would we have their attorney contact you for any interpretation that they might want?
If he
Because-
wanted to, if he had a question about what I was, speaking about, certainly I could speak to him.
Because obviously, for us right now, the timing is, getting critical with the two of them already progressing and.
I understand. But the easement is,
Right,
like
right.
you mentioned, it's a document, and if
Right.
it's clear that that requires an amendment to
Right.
it, then it's
Right.
just gonna have to happen.
Right.
And Ashley, was the consideration of the parkland requirement something that we should do now, or is that something we should wait until the resolution is discussed?
You can do that at your next meeting. I believe the applicant's aware that there are the parkland requirements, so the village will have to discuss whether there's a need created for parkland as a result of the new unit, similar to as you did with the prior application.
With all due respect, is that something that could potentially be assessed now? And we're willing to pay it. You already determined on the other duplexes that we needed it. If there's any way that could be just decided on tonight, that we will need to add those, it might save us an extra 2 weeks of meetings. If you're not comfortable, that's fine, but I need to ask because we are willing to pay it. We're not gonna fight it. If it could be established and just included in the draft resolution, that would be.
It'll be
Well-
included in I'm saying that they don't have to vote on the actual findings this evening, but it would always be a condition of the resolution. It won't, that's gonna be all wrapped up at the same meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't,
It won't take any
Well,
time.
yeah,
I just-
exactly.
You know where I was coming from.
Yeah, we understand.
If the board wanted to authorize the drafting of a resolution contingent on the village engineer's review of the amended plans.
Yeah, I'm comfortable doing that, based on what I see. So could I get a motion to authorize the drafting of a resolution of approval that's contingent on the village engineer's comments?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so hopefully
Yeah, I think
we
we've
will see
condensed
you.
all we can.
Right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate that.
Thanks real quick for all of our members and
Sure.
who are new here too. So, sorry about the lack of clarity with the question about the referral to the engineer. Yes, your previous application was, and you know tonight that it has been. But any contact with our consultants needs to come through me. So if you are trying to reach out to our consultants that you are familiar with, please keep me in the loop. That way I know that it's gone there. Okay?
Thanks, Al.
Thanks.
Okay, next we have PB 22-20, 29 South Chestnut Street. All right, tell us a little about this brewing company.
Sure. So I'm proposing, small brewery inside an existing barn on the property. We don't plan on making any changes to the footprint or really to the exterior of the barn, other than replacing doors and windows to make it more energy efficient. It's my understanding that the B2 allows this type of use. And I think there's even been one over here with the Arrowwood outpost. Was approved as the same thing, so.
What is the requested use
um,
specifically?
It's a artisanal use it falls under.
Okay. But this doesn't have any retail component, right?
Correct, so I'm not proposing any retail. So the classification of brewery that I'm pursuing is a farm brewery. That does allow tastings, it does allow sale, but I'm not proposing to do that. Just out of consideration of the residences behind the barn. I've spoken to both of the neighbors about that. So it's strictly for brewing, and then it would be distribution on a small scale to like local bars and local stores to start. This is sort of a pilot for me, and if it takes off, I have a property up the street by VFW that I would then develop that potentially.
Interesting. Okay, so it's not quite the same as Arrowwood, the Arrowwood Outpost was, where they had it was a tasting room bar.
I think they were intending to be a brewery there, but it ended up just being a bar, and it really shouldn't have been. It was supposed to be a brewery there. That's my understanding of it. But with this, discussing this with the building department, it seemed that this falls under the artisanal use. Given the scale of it.
It's artisanal use regardless of the fact that it's whatever it's brewing or making, that's what Corey recommended as the code in which we would consider the application.
Yeah, I haven't seen him make a formal determination of that yet. But
That's your proposal.
that's my understanding.
Okay.
The building's pretty small, and it'd be a pretty small operation, and it wouldn't be like people hanging out there, that type of thing. It would be, just pretty much self-contained within the building.
Would there be any, I'm not super familiar with the brewing process. Are there any like smells that are generated or
Sure. So
noises?
it's a good question. So in speaking to the neighbors, that was pretty much one of the bigger issues. Having Gilded Otter, as I was in my 20s, you could always smell it. When I was growing up on South Chestnut Street. What I plan on doing, the only thing that really makes the heavy smell is when you're brewing, when you're boiling basically wort. So what I propose to do in an effort to save energy also is to condense the steam and then recoup it as hot water that I can use for cleaning processes or other things. So there are systems now, instead of just blasting it, all that hot steam out there, I can basically you catch it, you mist it, and it condenses into a container, and then you use that for cleaning purposes or.
There's a closed loop, and therefore there's no scent.
Right, and I don't lose all that energy of like just sending it all out. My intention here is, first and foremost is to make a great product, but also to do it in such a way that I can produce the beer sustainably. The making of beer tends to be a pretty high energy use and high water use. I am looking to put a photovoltaic array on a building, the front building, as well as a hot water solar. So I'm going to try to heat as much as I can with the hot solar panels. And on the other end, I intend to try to come up with a process to reduce the water usage as well. And again, this is sort of a pilot operation, small scale, in order to see how it goes.
Right.
I can't do it without it being approved and liquor licenses and all that.
Yeah. Will there be any changes to the site lighting? Didn't see.
I did not show that. That's a good question. We would definitely have to light up the there's two doors that will be operational in the front of the building. By code, we would need to have lights there, so I would have to show that.
Okay.
We have full cutoff lights on the front building. I would use the same type of light, LED.
Yeah.
I'm also required to have security cameras as well because of the type of use with the state liquor authority.
Right. I think that we would also like to see any signage proposed on the plan. And then the parking table, that the site plan should have a parking table will need to be revised to reflect the new mix of uses. So there's currently retail, office space, and residential in that front building, right?
Right, it's just, it's office space and one apartment upstairs. Originally, I had gotten a area variance to include the apartment on the second floor, but subsequently the zoning has changed to B2, so I no longer, I mean, I still have the variance obviously, but it's no longer benefiting me. It's just, the density there is doubled, the allowable density is doubled, so.
And are there any other pre-existing non-conforming issues with the building in terms of setbacks or other aspects of the structure that you're aware of?
So with the B2 zoning, the setbacks are very minimal and sounds like it comes down to rear yard, they are requiring 10 feet in B2. And obviously this is a, like you said, pre-existing non-conforming building that's about a foot.
If there's a change of use, are we gonna, that might need to be considered for a variance?
Yeah, that's something that, yeah, we're gonna have to hear back from Corey on that. I'm not sure if that change of use will trigger the need for a variance. And also the other note here was that any water connection should be reviewed by the DPW for compliance with cross-connection regulations. Village code lists breweries as a facility that may require cross-connection control. Okay, so I think, at this point, I'd like to get a motion to set escrow for this application at $1,500 with a 50% replenishment.
So move. Second.
On favor?
Aye.
Aye. And yeah, I think Autumn will send you these notes, these comments that we had that we just discussed, and we will hopefully hear back from Corey regarding the change of use. And I guess also, is there going to be a special use permit narrative as part of this application?
So artisanal use is a principally permitted use.
Ah,
So I don't believe there's any need for special use for
okay,
this application. But again, that's Corey's final determination on that.
I see.
One other little question that came up in the material is, you indicated that it's near a historic district or structure. You know what you were referring to when you indicated that in the EAF?
I think that was self-popular or
It was,
popular. So the entire downtown district is considered a historic district, so that might be what it's referring to. This barn itself was an old horse barn. It was my great uncle's property back in the teens, 1915, I think he built it. Next door, that was built in the 50s. As far as that, the house was built in the 1890s, but I don't know what the state put in there in the AF.
Yeah.
My guess, when I did 15 North Chestnut, we ran into that the whole downtown is a historical district. So I don't know if that's
Just on the radius.
comes out on every, yeah.
corner, yeah.
But I'm not aware
It
of
was
any.
the automated application that triggered that.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't put that in.
Okay. Yeah,
Because that might need a referral, right? To
the HPC.
HPC.
Yeah, I don't know about that, because just because it's in the B2 district, it's unless it's within a certain radius of like a historically landmarked building, which.
Yeah, I think that would be the question of whether it's in a historic district itself or if it's how close it is to a historic structure, since that trigger did get filled in on the DEC mapper. So if maybe you could find out some more information on what triggered that.
Yeah. Because what lighting, signage, that type of thing would get removed then, right? So let's find out.
Yeah, nothing ever came up when I did the original project about 10 years ago, as far as there being a historic landmark
There's something
building,
new historic.
maybe.
And I guess just as far as the use, you were saying artisanal use, but I'm looking at the use table. What is it called? Something else? I don't see.
I know the village has an issue with use table versus what's within the code. I'm not sure if it's in one location or the other. So it might not be in the use table, it might be in the actual body of the code.
Okay, yeah, because I didn't see it because since the B2 zoning amendments, they eliminated all of in the district regulations themselves. They just refer to the use table. So again, I mean, it's going to need Corey's clarification on the use, but just want to make sure, because that's a threshold issue, that to make sure that it's the use itself is permitted in the zoning.
Right.
Yeah, my memory is that it's within the actual body of the district zoning uses. It's like in that first or second paragraph of the new B2 code.
Okay. Was there anything else, Ashley?
No, I think that's it. I think we just need the building inspector to weigh in on those few issues, and then the applicant could show the lighting, the signage, and Autumn can share my comments with him to address whatever else is identified in those.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Okay, number 7 is PB 22-21, 118 Huguenot Street.
Number 7,
Lucky number 7.
7/9 of the way there.
So hi, I'm Robin Gullickson with Alfondre Architecture. This is Ryan.
Ryan with Alfondre. Meet you guys.
Dave.
Red.
Homeowners.
They have an existing, like a small shed that they want to convert into a pottery studio. And since it is already within the setbacks, the plan is to actually demolish it and move the entire thing to within, so that's meeting the code and it's not in the setbacks any longer.
Great. Let me just
So it's the demolition and construction of a new structure,
Correct.
not a conversion of the existing.
Correct, correct. Because they wanted to make it larger. If they were gonna keep it the same size, we'd probably just leave it as is, but if we would like to make it a little bit larger, so we figured that we would just move it.
One
into the
minor,
setbacks.
sorry, one minor correction on the plan. There was a misunderstanding. There's not an existing septic. It's public sewer. There's not a septic
So
tank
on the
there.
plan, we'll change that with our next
Sure.
Yeah,
submission.
misunderstanding.
Okay. So is this, one question that, we had about this, is this just gonna be for personal use or what? So there'll be no other people coming in for pottery lessons?
Not
or-
even Dave.
Just her and the dogs.
Okay, it's good, let's see. So in the past, we have restricted the use of like additional plumbing in these outbuildings. Is this something that's needed for the pottery studio itself, or is this just a convenience?
Yeah, it's needed because with pottery, you need like water and
Right.
electricity and then water to clean. So you need it,
Yeah.
you know, for like the making and for the
Yeah.
cleaning. So
Okay, so it's an important part of the proposed.
So the plumbing is necessary, but not necessarily the bathroom.
yes, but in winter, when it's snowing, you need a bathroom. Because
It's her oasis. Doesn't want to go back in the house.
I needed it. Yes.
Um,
It's not essential, but it makes my life much easier.
understood.
Any thoughts about that?
Well, being new to the board, the notes indicate that in the past, I don't know, I wasn't here, but it sounds like there was a similar application from another person here in the building. And the request for the bathroom was denied. So, you know, as I look at public service, you know, we gotta be fair to everybody. So I don't know how I approve a bathroom now, when I have another resident in town that this same board said no to later, previously. It just doesn't seem fair. It's a matter of fairness. There's nothing to do with you personally at all. I appreciate the fact you need water, but I think we ought to be fair to our neighbors. And I understand it's inconvenient in the winter.
Or
The good news
we
is,
approve it and then we make life better for everybody following us,
that's a thought.
as opposed to just follow that one.
Would that be eliminating the bathroom and the running water, or just the use of a toilet? Do you know what that one was, or?
And I don't know what the previous application was. You know, I would have no problem. Attorney, an attorney, an engineer, I don't know, I would have no problem putting water out here because you're going to need it.
Yeah.
For your enjoyment. But, I don't think we should have put a bathroom in here if we denied a bathroom to another applicant previously. Given the same circumstance, and it sounds like it was the same circumstance.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at what the circumstances were, if they had requested it to have an actual bathroom or if they just wanted the plumbing and the water connections or what. It was a different, as the board discussed this evening, this is, you know, the pottery studio that's different than, I think that was a sculpture or art studio, or maybe there was a yoga studio application as well. So we could certainly look at that, and then the board, you don't have to decide this evening whether you want to require or to restrict the half bath itself, but
It seems like one of the considerations was whether it could be a guise for creating a dwelling So, you know, proposing it as a pottery studio, putting a bathroom in and then using it as a residential studio. Or an Airbnb usage or something like that, and that would not be permitted.
Right.
So one, we should just be explicit on the record and say that even if the half bathroom were allowed, it does not mean that it could ever be used as a living quarter or residential, or any residential or, you know, sleeping use. If it were approved, but probably the reason the first one. I don't know if there's a size difference that we might want to look at just to see if it's an apples to apples consideration, as Terry mentioned. So let's, I guess we can think about
Yeah, we should go back and look at the other applications and see what the specific situation was. But what were were there any other issues that we wanted to?
So just one thing on the EAF mapper, it did, the DEC auto fill in came up for the species, the sedge wren. So if the applicant could just submit to the DEC, the wildlife division, and they're pretty quick about giving a determination that, you know, you could do your plan within a year and there won't be any impacts, that kind of thing. Since it does involve new disturbance that's not in the present footprint of the shed.
And this being on Huguenot Street, does it have to go to the HPC as well?
We talked to them and they approved us.
Oh, you did? Okay, cool.
So the layout that you see, the elevations that you see, those were all approved, with obviously stipulations of making sure that there's a certain, you know, clapboard siding and the 2/2 windows. That aesthetic has all been approved, and the form that you're seeing is identical to the form of the shed that's there right now, just a single shed roof. So the form's identical, and yeah, they even before they came to us, they had already gotten that taken care of. So.
Can you submit the HPC approval just for the record, so the planning board has that?
Sure, we'll get that to you.
Well, I think in that case, that was all the questions that I had. Any other things we want to talk about here? Did I miss any?
So as far as what you could do this evening, you would be able to set the escrow amount. You can classify the action as type 2 under seeker. And then this application will require a public hearing if you wanted to schedule that. It is exempt from review by Ulster County Planning Board.
Yeah, okay. So could I get a motion to set escrow for $1,500 with a 50% punishment?
We'll move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And could I get a motion to classify this as a type 2 action under seeker?
We'll move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. And then I'm ready to schedule the public hearing as well. I think that the few remaining issues will be ready by our next meeting. Autumn, when would that be? January 3rd, right. So could I get a motion to schedule the public hearing for 22-21 on January 3rd?
We'll move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. Okay. So that's it for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And then will you let us know at the next meeting your determination about the bathroom? Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Good night. Good night. Take care. You too.
And there were two.
So PB 22-22, 57 Plains Road.
Good evening.
Good evening. Oh. Yeah. So are you the applicant or the?
I am the agent for the applicant. My name's Sam Dulahay. I'm from Dulahay Architecture, representing the owner of the house.
Got it. Can you just walk us through the plan here?
Absolutely. There's an existing steel deck in this residence at 57 Plains Road. The owners wish to, I guess, demo, expand, and renovate the existing deck, increasing it from about 750 square feet to about 1,300 square feet. There will be a new spa with cover in the proposed deck. I guess that would be the extent of this summary.
Okay, so there's nothing. Okay, so this includes a outdoor kitchen, and that pool is just hot tub size, or how large is it?
Yeah, I think it's a hot tub size. I believe it's about 8 by 10. And yeah, I mean, I guess it's sort of, I would categorize that as a hot tub, not a pool.
Right.
And everything that says in the plan, everything that says existing deck to be replaced with new, that means it's gonna be the exact footprint of the current,
It
it's just gonna
is.
be newly.
It's
built.
it's essentially the exact same footprint. It expands upon it. I mean, again, the sort of the walkway that is on the east side is new. The sort of the western side is expanded from a
Yeah.
smaller deck and a
Yeah.
patio.
Yeah.
I apologize, I did not provide an existing drawing.
That's it.
But I mean, fundamentally, it's a fairly minor addition.
But it's like 600 something square feet of new deck, exterior deck.
Yeah, I guess 600, yeah, about 650 square feet of new deck.
And does the additional square foot include the existing patio paving to be replaced with deck, or is that considered a one-to-one?
You mean it's covering the location of the
Yeah.
existing patio,
Okay,
yes.
so that's not the expansion.
So that's not part of the expansion from
Got
a
it.
square footage perspective, but it's
Yeah.
part of the renovation, of the new
Got it.
deck.
I'm trying to just capture what is the increase, and it looks like it's that
Yeah.
pathway is substantial actually in terms of square footage.
Yeah, this pathway.
I'm looking at it here, but.
Okay, yeah, but yeah, this pathway here is new.
Yeah.
And I think the existing deck is about something like that.
I see.
So we're expanding it out in this area.
So the issue that was raised by our attorney is that this is in the F district on the floodplain.
Yeah,
zone.
that seems to be the complexity.
So, as I'm sure you're aware, that, means that the existing single-family residence is a legal pre-existing non-conforming use, and so no existing building or premises is devoted to a non-conforming use shall be enlarged, extended, reconstructed, substantially or structurally altered, except when a change to a conforming use or when required to do so by law, and except as follows. So there are a number of, possible exceptions there. I think that, in order for us as a planning board to move forward with this, then we need to get the opinion of our building inspector on if this is, fitting under one of these special exceptions. And Autumn, did he weigh in on this at all yet, or was that something else that I saw him?
Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, on PB 2222.
And then, Zach, you're sort of, which that is obviously, if someone was to build something in the flood zone right now, you would not be able to do this. And yet but we have a scenario where we have two residences that have sort of been captured by this zone.
Mhm.
And so I guess then it is just a question, does this lead to the owners of these two residents, are they unable to sort of do anything to the house of
Well-
this sort? Which I'm just, it's quite, or is there some, is the pre-existing non-conforming use extend to sort of what may one consider as sort of conventional and typical additions, renovations to single family residence? I guess that would be my
I think
question.
that, typical repairs, renovations would fall under this category B, repairs. If you were just fixing up the existing deck, I would say that would be pretty obviously like allowed. The fact that it's including 650 square feet of additional deck with an outdoor kitchen, with a large hot tub, that I'm not sure about. This area does flood pretty frequently. I don't know, the code is pretty strict about.
In one regard, if we were adding a deck as opposed to a patio, we would actually be up above the, sort of flush on the ground. So in one sense, we would be improving the circumstance relative to that concern, the concern of the actual flooding of this.
So
Just,
okay.
I guess a question here, and it's just as how does this work? Is how does this work in a sort of when a homeowner wants to sort of modify their house in a conventional manner in a location that has been sort of determined, I guess after the house has been built for quite some time. Are they no longer then allowed to? Is this become almost what I guess the equivalent of sort of a historic district where suddenly this house is locked in place, or is there some liberty of that existing structure to still exist as a house that someone may want to, this deck is old, it's trash, I want to put a new one, but it's not 1972 anymore. So it's like this deck to, sort of reflect current. So that, I guess that, from my perspective, that seems to be the question of this situation.
Yeah, I think that's a good question.
I think it is, and the way the code lays it out, it's restoration, reconstruction, and then it explains exactly what qualifies as that. This does not seem to qualify as that. Then it's repair. So for instance, I guess I'm reading the code, interpreting it that if it were repair, meaning the deck was worn and was unsafe. But then in the repair section, it specifically says cannot extend the area or volume of space occupied. Doesn't say you can't put a hot tub, but it does say, extending the area or the space.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons I was trying to be clear about how much additional square footage is being added.
Yeah.
As opposed to just existing being replaced. Because when you explain the project to Corey, who ultimately I think is going to interpret this for us, he's going to be able to say, well, if you just want to replace the decking and update it like you described, that might be possible. But when it comes to the significant expansion, then it might need, an approval that we can't give, right, according to the code.
Would this extend beyond, I guess, because I understand what you're saying, and I guess the question then is, is a homeowner sort of stuck in a certain scenario? And then is that a question like, who is that? That's Corey to address, or do we have to go to a sort of,
Yeah.
what happens when a village or a town sort of creates a flood district, I guess?
Yeah. So
Because it's not technically, because it is not in the floodplain. It's not in the 100-year.
If I could
flood
just jump in on there too, because it happens to be a non-conforming use in the floodplain district, but the same analysis would apply to any district where use was once permitted and now it's rendered non-conforming because of a change in the zoning. So it's not so much specific to the flood district or the reasons for limiting buildings and structures in the flood district as it is the non-conforming nature of the use. So there is that section that's been discussed, and I think the next step is really for Corey to weigh in on whether that would trigger, constitute an enlargement of the non-conforming use and then need potentially a variance from the ZBA in order to proceed.
Yeah.
If there was a variance required, would that be an area variance? Or, I mean, that would, presumably that would be an area variance on a use variance? Or would that be use variance because they're now in a floodplain with a flood zone, which is no longer?
That I'm not 100% sure about.
I'd have to think about that. There is, I note too, that as I'm reading, there's the provision for reconstruction that when there's a non-conforming use, an owner may apply to rebuild, and the owner decides to rebuild for any reason, they could do so if the planning or if the zoning board determines that it's not a substantial enlargement of the use, and if it would provide better aesthetics, higher setbacks, or assist in alleviating existing nuisance characteristics. So although this applicant's not seeking to rebuild the entire house itself, I wonder if maybe that that provision could apply for, because essentially it's a deck that's accessory, that's a non-conforming accessory use to the residence, whether they could proceed under that reconstruction section as an option, which would still need to go to the zoning board of appeals, but it would be a different standard than a variance.
So, okay, so so possible routes are seeking a variance through the ZBA. Or a
Or
favorable
the
interpretation.
reconstruction of the deck that's not a substantial enlargement.
Right. Modifying plan.
But again, I would
substantial.
defer to Corey on whether that would be considered, that would fall under.
I guess,
under
and then and substantial is defined at, I guess, who defines substantial is
That would
Cory
be to
defined.
the zoning board of appeals to determine whether or not it would be a substantial enlargement of the use.
Well,
For example, the Stewart's gas station, that was a non-conforming gas station, non-conforming use. They proceeded under that section where they were able to demolish the existing structure and then rebuild.
but I think the question was if the site plan is modified to reduce the amount of additional area constructed, like how much is allowed versus.
Yeah, I guess that would, yeah, that'd be a question.
I think that would fall to Corey to decide, and I will say that he briefly took a look at this and said that initial thoughts are, I concur with Ashley that this would be an expansion to a pre-existing non-conforming structure, which would require variance to 212-54. But he is going to make an official determination about this plan, and then, you know, if you want to decide to reduce the deck or pursue the
Yeah.
variance, then you can do that.
Okay, so is that, all right, so is that, do we wait for Corey to make that to you guys, and can I reach out to Corey, or is that sort of breaking the?
I think that we will let you know as soon as we get back, hear back from him.
I spoke to him earlier this evening, and I can't relate exactly the conversation, but 212-54 is what he seemed to be sticking by, period.
Okay.
And that if there is a path forward, most likely it's through the ZBA. I believe that,
Okay.
that was his intention. I don't have it in writing, but.
So, yeah,
Makes sense.
I think that's,
So the other option though, just so but if the deck was essentially, if the 750 square foot deck was replaced with this much nicer 750 square foot deck, that's one approach.
I believe that has a much
That's an
better
easier approach.
upper chance of getting a favorable interpretation from, yeah.
Okay, so then there's some questions still left. So I guess then the issue of the public hearing seems like that needs to be.
I think we're gonna hold off on scheduling the
Yeah.
public hearing until after we resolve this.
All right.
Yeah, I wish you luck. Thanks for.
Thank you.
Explaining.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Nice to see you guys.
Okay, PB 22-23.
I don't believe, did you set the escrow for that application?
Oh, I'm sorry. I did not. Yep, that was my fault. Okay, could I get a motion to set escrow at $1,500 with 50% replenishment?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And could I get a motion to classify this as a type 2 action under seeker?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Sorry about that. Okay, now we're on to 22-23, 30 North Manheim Boulevard. Okay. This is, oh, it's okay, Autumn. I have the plan up. So can you just explain the plan for us?
Sure.
Excuse me.
So this is a existing ranch home and 30 North Manheim. And it's being renovated right now. And they want to add a deck at the back. And so one thing that is happening is that we're staying within they have 32% site coverage. It's one of the parameters. And so we're matching that. We're not expanding, we're just slightly reshuffling it. For example, there was an existing egress stair within the side yard, and we're moving it out in effect to the deck. There's a provision of the code that allows for egress stairs to be within the side yard. So that's one piece of this. And so that's some square footage of coverage that's being shifted out. There's the existing paved driveway that's being cut back slightly to allow for the deck to be slightly larger. But so this is the same amount of coverage in impervious coverage. And then the existing paving, the basement door is high, so the paving is actually above the wood frame. And so we want to take down the paving because it's really too high. You know, layers came up too high. And instead of having truck traffic off with this material, we want to just push it to the backyard, create a slightly more wider level area. The backyard drops off and then has a lower level area. And so then that would be grassed, and they'd have some area that would be pavers, and some area that would be repaved around the curve. And then there'd be some area that is covered in that can be a turnaround area. That's the black plastic, like pavers almost. And I included an image with the submission just to clarify the type of paving material used.
So for this residential zone, what is the maximum lot coverage? Oh, I see. Yeah.
So yeah, the zoning bulk table, it's supposed to be 30% maximum. So the existing is 2% more than that over. And so that's clearly the limit. So we would just be remaining at that existing non-conforming amount. We would not be expanding the non-conformity, be maintaining the non-conformity as it were.
Okay, but it is expanding it by 2%. But
No, the existing coverage is 32%.
Oh,
And
I see.
proposed is also 32%.
Okay, my misunderstanding.
So the question would be then for Corey, just to confirm that that's a legal pre-existing nonconformity. And that the 32% lot coverage and also I think some setback questions there, just to have him confirm those are legal and are allowed to continue.
And
Right.
is that also true, am I seeing correctly that there's in the setback? There, the building where that former egress stair is, that's being moved, the existing egress stair. Yeah. That's in the setback, is that correct?
Right, the
So that's also
existing and the
pre-existing
building
non-conforming.
is within the setback, side yard setback, and then the proposed stair would be less. It would be less than 4 foot in, so, you know, it's less of a non-conformity. So I mean, it's improving the situation.
Right.
In
And
terms
you
of
said-
side yard setback.
I see.
There's a,
3 things that are currently likely pre-existing non-conforming,
yeah,
hopefully legal, that we
Yeah.
need opinion on.
Something around that.
Yeah, somewhere around that number. Okay. Excuse me.
well, I think the plans look very thorough to me. Appreciate all of having the existing elevations and the new proposed elevations all right here. I think for our next steps, I'd like to get a motion to set escrow for this application at $1,500 with a 50% replenishment.
We'll move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And given that this is just a addition of a deck and renovation, I'd like a motion to classify this as a type 2 action under seeker.
We'll move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And was there any other issues?
There's a small point that you plan to, you mentioned to improve that grade in the back with the fill from the driveway and just making sure that that's considered clean fill to put in the ground there.
It's
So
kind of
we want to
blacktop.
justify it. It is blacktop, right?
Yes, the existing is a pretty standard blacktop driveway, and I think it was just relayered a couple of times.
So that's the material that you're gonna take up and use, and you would want to demonstrate to Corey that that's clean fill.
Yes. We would want it to be clean fill, otherwise we wouldn't want to use it, but I believe that is considered, you know, generally speaking, to be
Could be oil, it could have oils and other things, or that be.
right, but I mean, it's around us.
Okay, let's have
It's
Corey
around
just
us,
make
but
sure that that's makes sense.
Fine.
We wouldn't want you to bury something that wasn't supposed to be buried.
Yes, I want Corey to weigh in on.
Um,
on matter.
And I think it would be helpful if the elevations could show the changes in the grade. I'm not sure, it's hard to tell if you've done that, but maybe just having it an outline on the proposed elevation where the existing grade is, something similar to what you do with the existing stairs, egress stairs.
Let's see. I guess so. I mean, to some extent, my drawings go out to the end of the new deck, and that's pretty much the end of the driveway, and it's relatively level, what I've represented. And then beyond that is where the property has like a 3 or 4 foot sloped drop off to this lower level.
Okay.
So I don't have that representative. I could create a representation of that.
This is beyond the plan you currently.
Right.
That's right.
I
It's
see.
on into the backyard. So it wasn't really on the house plans because it's on, you know, I could do it. I would need more paper.
Given that it's gonna be an alteration, I think we should go ahead and request that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be like a section view.
Yeah, and then there was also a note about the EAF mapper indicating that site or adjoining property has been the subject of remediation for hazardous waste. So applicant stated that DEC reports the nearest known remediation site is ShopRite Plaza, and if you could just submit a printout from the DEC database concerning this remediation, so we could add it to our.
Call. And that's what he said he found. I'm not certain how I'd print that out.
I
Alright,
think
well,
the DEC
Google it.
must have online some way to access their, list of remediation sites. And yeah, we could just have,
Just to have it on record.
yeah,
Because I saw that too, and I want to know, like,
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything.
and I mean, I think we could schedule a public hearing for this. An agreement,
Do it on the same day?
the January 3rd meeting. Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. Could I get a motion to schedule the public hearing for PB 22-23 on January 3rd?
We'll move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think that's it for right now.
I'll just note for that public hearing notice, we'll need to go to the town of New Paltz town clerk because of the distance from the town boundary. So just so Autumn's aware of that when those notices are going out.
Autumn, do you take care of those notices?
I'll put together a packet for you, the applicant, and, yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And could I get a motion to adjourn?
We'll move.
Second.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. Autumn, can you, I don't know that the hotel folks gave this memo. I think we told them to submit it to you, right?
Yeah, I made a note about
Can you make sure, because it feels like it's kind of a
They did that. in the board meeting too.
key piece of their
They
evidence.
just threw
They just-
something on the
they've got a
table.
lot of fire.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ashley.
It's all very kind of.